I want you to try a little thought experiment with me. Pull out your phone, open WhatsApp, record a voice note. Just, sing a few lines of something.
Okay.
Now listen to it back. What do you hear? You probably hear, compression. A little hiss from the room you're in. It's a flat, digital, pretty lifeless file.
It's functional. It's definitely not something you'd put on Spotify.
Exactly. Now, imagine taking that exact gritty, low-quality file and transforming it so that, to the young ear, it sounds indistinguishable from a recording made in a royal Mughal bathhouse from the 17th century.
Okay, that's
And I don't just mean adding a reverb filter. I mean reconstructing the actual physics of that room.
right. That sounds like a magic trick. Or at least some very high-end, expensive studio wizardry that would take weeks and weeks of work.
You'd think so. But the story we're digging into today is about how that happened, using a collaboration that sounds like the start of a joke, a medical doctor, an intuitive poet, and artificial intelligence.
And that's what we're unpacking, a project called Teri Justuju Mein.
Which means
It translates to In Searching for You. And it is a fascinating case study. This comes from a channel called The Inner Compass. And what stands out to me is that they haven't just made a song. It's more like they've created a sort of laboratory where science, psychology, spirituality,
oh, these big ideas.
they all just crash into each other.
That's a lot of heavy hitters in one sentence. I mean, science, psychology, spirituality, usually those things stay in their own lanes.
They do. But the mission here was pretty unique. We're looking at two creators who used AI not to replace human emotion, which, let's be honest, is the big fear everyone has right now.
A big fear, yeah.
But to translate it.
Okay.
And they used the specific acoustics of 17th century Lahore as what they called the emotional spine of the track.
Emotional spine. I like that. It implies the tech isn't the face of the thing. It's just holding it all up. But before we get into the heavy philosophy, I need to understand the players here. You mentioned a doctor and a poet. Who are they?
Okay, so the two minds behind this are Adila and Dr. Hasan Raza. Let's start with Adila. The source material describes her as a spiritually inclined soul. But for what we're talking about, the most critical detail is that she is a totally untrained singer.
Okay, stop there. When you say untrained, do you mean she's just an amateur? Or do you mean she doesn't know the rules, the theory?
Both, effectively, yeah. She isn't a professional vocalist, doesn't read sheet music.
Mm-hmm.
Her creativity is described as intuitive. She, hears tunes and musical phrases internally before they ever take form.
So it's not constructed.
No, it's from a place of lived emotional depth, not technical skill. It's an arrival of thought.
So it's raw. It's coming from the gut, not from the head.
Precisely. And then to balance that, we have the head, Dr. Hasan Raza.
The doctor.
The doctor. And he's not a doctor of music theory or anything like that. He is a medical doctor and an academic. His specialty is human biochemistry, metabolism, and genetics.
Okay, so he's the guy analyzing your blood work and telling you about your DNA. That's a very specific, very analytical skill set. How does a geneticist end up producing Sufi music?
That's the fascinating duality. He also runs a channel called Echoes of the Soul. And for him, using AI to make music isn't a technical exercise. He sees it as the translation of emotion into a language that machines can understand.
That is a really profound way to look at prompting. Usually we think of it as just commanding. Computer, make me a picture of a cat. He's talking about translation.
Exactly. But here's where the story gets really relatable. Because even with that high-minded philosophy, their first attempt was a complete failure.
I love a good failure story. It makes me feel better about my own projects. So what happened?
Well, Adila wrote the lyrics as this quiet outpouring of inner truth. It wasn't even meant to be a song. But Dr. Hasan felt the words needed music. So he did what a lot of people are doing right now. He fed the lyrics into an AI music generator and said, make a song out of this.
And the AI did its thing.
It did. It produced a melody. The timing was right, the pitch was perfect, but the source material notes that the results were, and this is the quote, emotionally hollow.
Emotionally hollow. Let's unpack that, because that is the #1 criticism of AI art, right? It's technically impressive, but you feel nothing. Why was it hollow?
Because the AI was looking at the lyrics as data. It understood the syntax, maybe the sentiment, but it didn't understand the weight behind the words. It couldn't capture that lived emotional depth we talked about with Adila.
It was a simulation of a feeling.
Exactly. Not the feeling itself.
So the doctor realizes the machine can't feel. What does he do? Does he go hire a sessions singer?
No. He goes back to the source.
Yeah.
He asked Adila to just sing the poem herself.
The untrained singer.
Yes. He told her to forget the rules, forget structure. Just sing the melody that felt natural to her. So she pulled out her phone, opened WhatsApp, and just recorded it.
And we are back to the WhatsApp voice night. I need you to explain the tech here, because I'm struggling to bridge this gap. We have a compressed, grainy phone recording. How do we get from that to a sonic memory resurrected?
This is where we get into the secret sauce, and it requires a little bit of history. The inspiration for all the sound engineering came from Dr. Hassan's visit to the Shahi Hammam in the walled city of Lahore.
The Shahi Hammam. I've seen photos. The royal bath from the Mughal era. It's stunning.
It is. But beyond the visuals, it's an acoustic marvel. I mean, think about the construction. Massive stone walls, high domes, water channels, specific geometric ventilation points.
Lots and lots of hard surfaces.
Exactly. Physically, these spaces were designed with this incredible resonance. The source material explains that the architecture is such that even an untrained voice sounds tuned, resonant, and alive.
Okay, wait, is this just the singing in the shower effect on steroids? You know how everyone thinks they sound like Pavarotti in the shower because the reverb hides all the mistakes?
It's similar in principle, but way more sophisticated in its physics. A shower just gives you that slapback echo. In the Shahi Hammam, the geometry creates a complex harmonic resonance. It smooths out the rough edges, it amplifies the core tone.
I see.
And Dr. Hassan remembered this specific quality. He also recalled these ancient Mughal-era drum beats that were used to draw people to royal proclamations in those very spaces.
So he has this memory of a specific room in Lahore. He has a grainy voice note. What does he do with that?
He decides to recreate the physics of that room inside the AI.
How?
This is the key. Instead of asking the AI for a sad song or a Sufi track or some generic genre, he crafted this exceptionally detailed prompt to recreate the acoustic environment of the Shahi Hammam. He described the materials, the size of the space, the type of reverb.
So he didn't ask for a style of music. He asked for a simulation of a place.
A simulation of a place, exactly. He built a virtual set. He wanted the AI to simulate the reverb, the rhythm, and the spiritual ambience of that specific physical space.
And then he just dropped the WhatsApp voice note into that virtual space.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
The acoustics became the emotional spine. And by placing that raw, imperfect vocal into this virtual, historical acoustic space, the track gained what the notes call a lived-in resonance.
Wow.
It stopped sounding like a digital file and started sounding like a memory.
That is just so cool because it solves the hollow problem. The AI wasn't asked to create the emotion. The emotion was already in Adila's voice. The AI was just asked to build the house for that emotion to live in.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It bridges that gap between, ancient spiritual tradition and modern AI technology. The technology serves the spirit, not the other way around.
So we've set the stage. We have this resonant, echoey, ancient-sounding track, but a song is more than just a vibe. We need to talk about the lyrics. You mentioned this is a journey.
It is. The song, Teri Justuju Mein, isn't just a collection of nice-sounding verses. It follows a very specific trajectory, from restlessness to stillness, from seeking to finding.
And Justuju, that means searching.
Yes. Teri Justuju Mein in searching for you. And you, here, with a capital Y, is the divine. It's a Sufi context.
Okay, so let's walk through this journey. Where does it start?
It starts with a paradox. The opening line is Teri Justuju Mein mile mujhe wo rasti, which translates to, in searching for you, I found the paths.
In searching for you, I found the paths. I feel like usually you find the path first and then you start the search. This seems backward.
That's the insight. The analysis in our source suggests the destination is unseen, you don't know where you're going. But the act of searching, the intent itself, is what illuminates the path right under your feet.
Ah.
The music at this point is described as gently opening up, mirroring curiosity rather than certainty.
It kind of validates that feeling of being lost. It's saying you're not lost, you're searching, and that's the whole point.
Exactly. And that search leads the listener into the next phase.
The
cipher.
silence.
The line is, Terer so sakut me nain manzilen, which means, in the silence of your longing, new destinations appear.
In the silence of your longing. Silence is something we are terrified of in the modern world. I mean, look at us. We are filling the silence right now. People doom scroll to avoid silence.
We do. We demand constant input. But the insight here is that silence isn't empty. It's fertile. The source material notes that the instrumentation softens here to reflect that stillness. The idea is that growth happens when desire stops demanding answers.
That is a tough pill to swallow. We want answers. We want clarity. We want the Google result. This is saying, sit down, shut up, and the destination will appear.
It implies that the noise of our demanding is actually what's hiding the answer. If you quiet that noise, the destination reveals itself.
So we search, we find silence. What happens next?
We learn manners. This brings us to the concept of adab.
Adab. I've heard that word. It means respect, right?
It means respect, but a deep respect. Etiquette. The line is, Adab-i ishqi sikaya me sarera. Translation. I learned the etiquette of love along the way.
Etiquette of love. That sounds so formal, like there are rules of engagement for spirituality.
There are. It implies that love isn't just this wild, untamed emotion. It has a conduct. The source says love matures through experience, not instruction. You can't read a textbook on how to love the divine. You have to walk the road to learn the adab, the proper conduct of the road.
And does the music change here? Because etiquette implies structure.
It does. The melody stabilizes, becomes less wandering, more grounded, to show that discipline and humility.
So we have curiosity, then silence, and now discipline. Where does this all lead? Is there a big aha moment?
There is, and it's about unity. The line is,
तुझे पाता रहा खुदी की तलाश में.
meaning, I kept finding you while searching for myself.
Oh, I love that. It's the idea that self-discovery and finding God are the same thing.
Precisely. They aren't two separate journeys. If you dig deep enough into yourself, you find the divine. If you look for the divine, you find your true self. The voice and the music sort of intertwine here to symbolize that unity.
Now, in a typical song structure, this is where we would ramp up to the climax. The big drums, the soaring high note. Does Teri Justuju Mein give us the big finish?
No. And this is probably the most critical part of the philosophy. It builds not to an explosion, but to a concept called Fana.
Fana. Okay, define that for us.
It's a Sufi term. The line is, "Me fanihun fana lazim hai mujh per." I am mortal. Dissolution is necessary for me.
Dissolution. That sounds, frankly, it sounds a bit destructive. Dissolution is necessary for me.
It can sound that way to the Western ego, which is all about accumulating and growing. But Fana refers to the surrender of the ego. It's about letting go of the I, the small self, so that the connection with the divine can take over.
So it's not dying physically, it's the death of the selfish part of you.
Correct. And the soundscape reflects this. It softens. It doesn't get louder. It gets more vulnerable. It lets the listener breathe. It's a fading out, emerging.
That is a very different kind of resolution. It's an anticlimax in the best possible way.
It is. The resolution of the song is described as the peace of arrival. The human becomes a believer, a moment, through what the lyrics call irtaqi nafs, or inner evolution.
So the goal of the song isn't to get you hyped up. The goal is to settle you down.
The source material explicitly says the song is meant to settle the listener. And think about our media landscape. Everything is designed to agitate you. The clickbait titles, the outrage news, the fast edits. This project is a deliberate antidote to that.
It's an audio sedative, but a spiritual one.
Exactly. And since we are talking about media, we should briefly mention the visuals. This was released on YouTube. Do they just, slap some stock footage of a sunset on it?
Right.
No, they applied the same translation philosophy to the video. They didn't use one generic prompt. They created specific visual prompts for each lyrical segment.
So when the lyrics talk about the silence of longing, the video generates imagery that matches that specific feeling.
Yes, the imagery matches the rhythm and the emotion of that specific line. It's a cohesive piece of art, audio, visual, and lyrical, all moving toward that same point of settling.
Zooming out a bit, the inner compass, the channel behind this, they seem to have a very specific agenda. This doesn't feel like typical content creation.
It's not. Their manifesto is actually quite beautiful. They promote the idea that the intellect must learn to listen and the heart learns to rest.
The intellect must learn to listen. That is a challenge for me. My intellect loves to talk. It loves to analyze, to categorize, to deconstruct things.
As does mine. That's why we do this. But they view spirituality as experiential, not instructional.
What does that mean? Experiential, not instructional?
It means you can't be lectured into peace. I can't explain the taste of an orange to you. You have to eat the orange. You have to feel the spirituality. And that explains why they used AI the way they did.
How so?
Well, they used the most modern, cold, calculated technology AI to create a deeply human experiential moment. They used the machine to bypass the intellect and go straight to the heart.
It really flips the script on the fear of AI, doesn't it? We usually think AI is going to make everything fake and plastic, but here they used AI to resurrect a 17th century reality to make a digital voice note feel more real.
That's what's so fascinating here. The technology was the bridge, not the destination. It allowed a doctor and a poet to transport a listener into a royal bathhouse in Lahore to learn about surrendering the ego.
That is a sentence I never thought I would say.
I know.
It sounds absurd when you say it like that, but it makes perfect sense in this context. So let's just recap this journey, because we've covered a massive amount of ground.
We have. We started with a poem by Adila, an intuitive, untrained singer who records a simple voice note on WhatsApp.
Then we had Dr. Hasan, the biochemist, who saw the music in those words but hit a wall when he tried to use standard AI to generate it.
So he pivoted. He took a mental trip to the Shahi Hammam in Lahore. He used AI to rebuild those specific acoustics, using the physics of the room as that emotional spine.
And then he placed that raw voice note inside that virtual space, wrapping the whole thing in a lyrical journey that moves from the restlessness of the search
To the discipline of silence and etiquette.
to the dissolution of the ego Fana.
And finally, to peace.
It really is incredible. In a world where we are just bombarded with information, I mean, my phone has buzzed 3 times since we started this. This project is asking us to do something very, very different.
It invites the listener to pause, listen, and recognize. It's asking for your attention, not to sell you something, but to show you something about yourself.
You know, there was one thought from the source material that really stuck with me as I was prepping for this. It was about the whole nature of seeking.
Yes, the closing thought. It challenges the whole premise of the search itself.
Right. We spend our lives chasing meaning. We look for it in books, in travel, in relationships, in careers. We look for it out there. But this project asks a different question.
It asks, what if the thing we are seeking has been quietly walking with you all along?
Quietly walking with you all along. That actually gives me chills.
It suggests the search isn't about covering distance. You don't need to go to a mountaintop. It's about increasing your awareness of what is already right there next to you.
And maybe that's the takeaway for you listening today. We're all running around trying to find the answer. Maybe we just need to find our own Shahi Hammam, our own personal space of resonance, and just listen.
Find your acoustics. Find your silence.
Thank you all for diving deep with us today on this really unique story.
It's